Nike's Vaporfly series has a bit of a cult following at this point, and it's been the go-to racing shoe for tons of elite runners and weekend warriors alike. So every time a new version drops, expectations are sky high and demand for them means that they sell out quickly. I got my hands on a pair of the all-new Nike Vaporfly 4 on its launch day, and I've taken this pair out for a few runs at various paces. And in this video, I'm going to break down my honest, unsponsored thoughts, covering everything from the fit, design, ride feel, and even how it compares to the Vaporfly 3, and a few other similar racing shoes out there, like the Puma Nitro Elite version 3 and the Asics Metaspeed Edge Paris. Stick around to the end if you're on the fence about upgrading or buying these as your first super shoe. Now let's start with the design, because first impressions do matter. And this thing looks fast, that is for sure. Nike has made some subtle but noticeable changes to version 4, with it now looking much more like Alphafly 3 with much more curved angles. We've lost the small cutout in the midsole that we had in the version 3, and we now have this kind of ledge-like look to the heel area and around the back, which is almost identical to the Alphafly 3. I've said this a lot in my Alphafly 3 reviews, and I will say it again here. Do not attempt, whatever you do, to take this off the lazy way by using your foot to take these off, because if you do, the foam ridge around the back is likely to snap and crack if you do. You've been warned, it will happen if you do it that way. You've got this updated mesh upper, which they're calling the Flyknit Lite 2. It's super breathable, but not as breathable as version 3 in my opinion. You can see here when I stick the light inside the shoe that there is a lot of ventilation, which means that these will be good for warm as well as cooler environments. The upper is way more snug than version 3, and it feels a lot more like what version 2 did. Many people thought that version 3 was too roomy, but I personally quite liked it. This version 4 definitely keeps your foot and your toes in place, especially in the midfoot area and in the toe box. The material is soft but snug fitting, and it feels a lot more like a racing shoe fit than the version 3 did. Nike has also changed the lacing system and gone is that dreadful angled monstrosity that we had on version 3 for now a much more natural lacing system. Also gone is what I thought was the strangest tongue on any racing shoe in any version I've ever seen on version 3, and it also cut into your ankle and was really hard to get into position when you put them on. And we've now got a much more traditional shaped tongue with a padded area to protect your top of your foot from any lace pinching. The tongue isn't gusseted, which is pretty standard for most carbon racers these days. The laces have been slightly changed and are now much more elastic and stretchable than the previous version. I always personally like the laces in the previous versions of the Vaporfly, and I think that these two are going to be very good and help you get a very secure lockdown. The ankle still has ample padding and a decent amount of structure around it to help with stability, which has also been something that I've always liked in the Vaporfly series as well. If anything, I would say there's a little bit more room actually at the back of the ankle area, which may mean that you need to pay a little bit more attention to the lockdown compared to other versions if you owned or wore those. Now Nike has bucked the trend a little bit in the super shoe market and has reduced the stack height of the version 4 by 5 centimeters compared to version 3. We have a stack height at the back now of 35 millimeters and 29 in the forefoot. Strangely though, it isn't noticeable when you look at version 3 and version 4 side by side. The rocker is way less aggressive than it was on version 3, and also less aggressive than you'll find on other low carbon plated racers like the Metaspeed Edge Paris and the Puma DV8 Nitro Elite 3. That said, its lightweight and nimbleness makes up for that, and you'll still be able to get super quick fast turnovers in these. We now have a new outsole with most of the forefoot covered by this kind of sticky webbed rubber. There are 2 protective rubber sections at the heel, but as usual with any Nike super shoe, we have a lot of exposed soft foam, which will pick up marks, scratches and debris pretty quickly. Like any other Vaporfly, they will not be the most durable and they will show signs of wear pretty quickly. So stick to tempo runs and save these for race days. Now all of these changes has meant that Nike has been able to shave off more weight in version 4, with my UK size 10, US size 11 coming in at only 190 grams, which honestly is astonishingly light. For context, that is 10 grams lighter than the Asics Metaspeed Sky Paris and 30 grams lighter than version 3 in the same size. This is a sign that Nike has decided to go after a different market with version 4. And it makes sense. The Alphafly 3 is the go-to marathon shoe for Nike fans out there, and it does a superb job over long distances, winning countless half and full marathon races including majors. The Vaporfly version 2 was as popular as the Alphafly for marathons, and to a smaller degree the Vaporfly version 3 also, but that was partly due to the fact that the Alphafly 2 wasn't everybody's cup of tea. But Nike have got the Alphafly 3 pretty much spot on, and in most cases, people will always go for the Alphafly 3 over the Vaporfly 4 for longer distances like the half and full marathon. So this move to a lighter, less stacked and slightly firmer ride with a lower plate design is, at least to me, a sign that Nike would like the Vaporfly 4 to be more aimed at a shorter distance road race like the 5 and 10k and perhaps the half marathon, and just let the Alphafly 3 do its thing in the marathon. We will see over time, but these feel like a step more towards the Streetfly 2 if anything. Okay, so on to how these actually feel to run in. Now disclaimer, I've only run in these a few times so far, so this is an initial review which may change over time. I need to run in a few races and a lot more paces in them to have a valid opinion, so to repeat myself, these are my initial thoughts only. Now I went true to size in my UK size 10, US size 11, and I recommend you do the same if you get these. Out of the box, they feel snug but dialed in. Once on, it feels like there is a lot more lockdown throughout the midfoot and into the toe box area than we had in the previous version. I did have a little bit of some material folding at the top of the toe box area when I ran, which I will try to reduce by making some changes to the lacing system. The lockdown is definitely better than it was in version 3, but I do feel a little more looseness in the heel area than I did in version 3. Now I didn't get any heel slip per se, but it was noticeable at times. So you may want to do a runner's knot if you feel the same way in these. These definitely do feel narrow with a much more snug fit of the upper. So this may now feel a little too narrow for people with wider feet. Nike doesn't currently sell a wider version of this shoe, but I wouldn't be surprised if that changes if it impacts sales in the future of these. The Zoom X foam still delivers that signature bounce and springiness that we've all become accustomed to. Although Nike has reduced the stack height, it's not that noticeable where I'm running. The ride in these is definitely firmer than it was in version 3, but the reduced stack height has not increased the stability. You feel a little bit more connected to the road in these, that's for sure. The low plate design is similar to the patented shape of the previous versions, with the plate positioned very close to the ground in the forefoot area, rising through the midsole and then up just under your foot in the heel. For those of you not so familiar with how plate designs differ in super shoes, here is a look at the difference between the Vaporfly 4 and the Alphafly 3, with the Alphafly 3 being a flatter plate compared to the low plate design of the Vaporfly 4. The flatter design gives a springier and bouncier feel, which is particularly well suited to longer distance races, whereas the low plate design is more propulsive, giving you a quick turnover of stride and suits situations where you plan to go all out. We also have a less aggressive rocker than we did in version 3 that doesn't rise as sharply as what it did in that previous version. For that reason, version 3 felt pretty much awful to run at slower paces in. Version 4 doesn't feel as bad, but you really don't buy a Vaporfly to run slow in, that's for sure. I swear that I could feel the carbon plate in the heel area, which if it continues, I won't enjoy running in them as much as I did in previous versions. Honestly though, after my first few runs in the Vaporfly 4, I've been left feeling a little bit underwhelmed for such a prestigious shoe. It may be because other brands have caught up so much in the super shoe market, but the original super shoe, as Nike brand the Vaporfly, is starting to feel a little bit like the ordinary super shoe and a little lost in what its purpose is. I think the Vaporfly 4 will suit fast, light, forefoot strikers who love to smash out PBs and go all out in 5 and 10k races. Those of you looking for an alternative in the Nike lineup for longer distance races will be left disappointed in my opinion. Now the changes make sense if you consider the success of the Alphafly 3, but it feels more like an expensive version of the Streetfly 2 now than a credible alternative to the Alphafly 3 for long distance racing. Now if we compare them to other low carbon plated options in the market, we have the Asics Metaspeed Edge Paris, which I believe is more comfortable, more aggressive and more responsive than the Vaporfly 4, with a better upper, more foam and a more durable outsole. The price is £20 cheaper than it is for the Vaporfly 4. Compared to the Puma DV8 Nitro Elite 3, we have a very similar upper and fit. The foam is firmer, with the compound being TPE, and definitely is more responsive. The ride is more aggressive on the Puma, and the grip and the outsole is absolutely class leading. The Puma are £40 cheaper than the Vaporfly 4. I need to run more in the Vaporfly 4 before validating this statement, but I would find it very hard to recommend these over the Metaspeeds or the Pumas even. Both of those shoes excel at shorter distance races as well, and you're going to get more miles out of them at a lower price point. If you're looking for a marathon shoe, I don't know why anybody would go for these over the Metaspeed Sky Paris, the Adidas Pro 4 or the Nike Alphafly 3, with the first two being also cheaper. If you want a fast 10k to half marathon shoe, then the Metaspeed Edge, the Nitro Elite 3 on first impressions are as good as the Vaporfly 4 and are also cheaper. If you want something special for a 5k, then you may as well go for the Nike Street Fly 2, which is nearly £80 cheaper than the Vaporfly 4. That said, the Vaporfly 4 is still excellent, and my impression may get better with more miles in them. I know that, but for 239 British pounds, I think it's fair to say that average consumers like me can expect a level of innovation and excellence that I just don't see in them yet. Sure, they're going to be very popular, and for fast, shorter distance runners with excellent running form, will like or even love them. But for heavier runners with weak ankles or wide feet that tend to heel strike, I would say stay well away from these. Now maybe it will find its way after a few races that I have coming up, but to me it feels a little bit like a shoe without a place at the moment. I hope that changes because I've always been a massive fan of the Vaporfly series, and I hope in time that I grow to love this version more than I do now. I will do a full review on these once I've run in them for a few months and I've done a few races. So if you'd like to see that, hit the bell and you'll be notified when I share that video. Am I talking nonsense, or do you agree with me? 239 British pounds or 260 US dollars is a lot of money, and I'd like to help as many people as possible make a sound, balanced purchase decision. And you can help by sharing your experience and your thoughts too. I always answer comments, so if you do have a question, please do let me know and I'll be happy to help in any way I can. If you found any value in this video, consider subscribing to the channel and giving the video a thumbs up. If you'd like to see a review of my favourite running shoe at the moment for long distances, the Adidas Pro 4, then click here. Thanks for watching and see you on the next video.